Hey everybody, this is Darryl, and we also have with us today
Mike Gannotti.
Hey, Mike Gannotti. And today we're going to talk about Copilot Agents. So I think we did a session before on agents before, right, Mike?
I think so. I think we determined that in order to be a true agent, you needed to wear sunglasses. So
that's right.
To be a secret agent.
Well, mine go dark when I go outside, so that's how I claim that one.
I'm ready now.
Okay. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to look at it from a user perspective. I don't think we explained really what agents are to any great detail, and we didn't really sort of did a good explanation what, when you could use an agent, how you use an agent. So this is kind of what this session's about, right? More for your end users to figure out what was an agent for, when do I use it, and then oh look, Copilot's popped up. That's kind of it. Must have heard its name. So we're going to show you some examples of agents and how to think of them, and then we're going to do some demos as well. So we're going to do SharePoint agents. We're going to show a agent builder agent, and then we're going to finish off with a Copilot Studio agent.
Yep.
Alrighty. With that, let's see if PowerPoint's going to behave today. So you might have seen this slide once or twice. And we call Copilot the UI for AI. So the user interface for artificial intelligence, the one-stop shop. We load up Copilot chat, and I can access my files, my OneDrive, the web, as well as agents. Okay, yes. So the question is, how do you think of that? How do agents work out? Now, if you've probably seen this slide as well, agents are available in Microsoft 365 Copilot. So if you have the full boat Copilot license, Microsoft 365, agents come along as well. But a new capability that's coming is if you just have Copilot chat, you will also have access to agents. And that's probably a conversation for another session. But you'll be able to use agents whether you have the full Microsoft 365 license or the Microsoft Copilot chat license that's included in your Microsoft 365 subscription. So just a quick recap, the difference between Copilot Chat and Microsoft 365 Copilot. Copilot Chat is the one that's grounded on the web. So it accesses the internet. It looks at stuff that's live in the internet today. So I can ask it what the weather's going to be like tomorrow. I can ask it the football scores, everything like that. And that one's pointed to the web. Microsoft 365 Copilot is one that points to work. So that looks at my emails, my OneDrive, my Teams messages. Everybody has access to Copilot Chat. If you have, as long as you have a Microsoft 365 license, you have access to that, to the one for the web. Yep. And there, you can build agents to that as well. And then for the other folks who are lucky enough to have Microsoft 365 Copilot license, they have access to the work version as well. So this is how to think of Copilot and agents. Copilot is really that human augmentation with private as personal assistant. And you have one-to-one Copilots as well, people to one-to-one. So I can use that as a generic application, doing all my AI notes, assessments, write content, everything else. Agents are slightly different. They are connected to Copilot, but they do other things. I can use them to automate tasks and processes. I can have it as I can share agents. So I can have an agent I've created, and we can actually share across myself and another teammate, or across our whole team, even across the whole company. And agents I think about as customized Copilot. And they can be built in one of three ways. You can use a Copilot agent builder, which is part of Microsoft 365, Copilot Studio, and Azure AI Foundry. And we'll talk about those in a moment, really how they can be used as well. So how should I think of an agent? So I use the analogy of having the smartphone. Smartphones have been around for a few years now. I can open up, the original smartphones never had apps. They just had a browser perhaps. So I could actually go to the web, open something up. But if you saw what happened was, the browser can go anywhere. So I think the Copilot chat being like the browser, I can go and look at any AI article, any research, it can go anywhere. An agent, though, I like to think of it as an app where it's limited to a certain ground set or a certain set of data, and it does a certain number of things. It doesn't go everywhere. So prime example is if I open up a Pizza Hut app, I can't browse the internet through Pizza Hut, right? It just goes to Pizza Hut. So think of an agent being very, very similar. It can only do a certain number of things that it's allowed to do. It doesn't go across the whole infrastructure or across the whole tenant.
And I like that because it really keeps you focused, right? Like,
yes,
if I have all this data out in SharePoint and I run just Copilot, I may get back all kinds of results from everywhere. But if I have an agent built on an authoritative repository in SharePoint, it's only going to provide me data from that specific repository, which helps you in certain tasks. Yeah.
Exactly. It doesn't influence the response from, like, you don't get other external responses influencing your request, right? It doesn't dilute your response, or you don't get what we call hallucinations, right? So there may be another document somewhere in the world that could influence that. The agent actually lets you focus on the one thing. So think of Copilot agents as being very, very similar. And if you look at the right-hand side, there's an agent loaded up here on that screen. But all my agents live, like, it's very much like my app tray on my phone on one side. So I can actually go and use my regular Copilot chat on my left-hand side. If I want to select an agent, I open up the agent tray, I guess. I'm not sure we've got a name for it yet. And then I can select the agent I want to do and focus on that one thing or that one task. So that really does help me concentrate. I can actually create queries through my agent. Again, as you mentioned, Mike, it's not being influenced by external noise for across the internet, across the tenant. There are 3 types of agent as well. And again, I kind of like using analogies. I'm an analogy person, right? So think of, there's a something called a retrieval agent. And imagine if I had my regular Copilot chat, I was trying to look at a query or look at a set of documents. It's looking across the whole tenant or even across the whole internet. There's all this other noise or other external thing happening. But if I had an agent, I can focus in a certain area and I only get responses back from that certain area. So think of it almost like a telescope, yeah? Imagine I'm focusing on one particular nebula or galaxy or whatever. I'm not getting all the noise from the rest of the universe. So my agent is grounded in a certain set of data. And a good example of that is a SharePoint agent. So I could be grounded on a SharePoint site or a separate SharePoint document repository, right? So that everything I look at in that agent is only being applied to that SharePoint site. The same applies to a user agent created in Agent Builder. I can select a certain amount of things it can look at or a certain amount of tasks, and it doesn't get influenced by other things. The next one I'd like to call as a task agent, or if you're American, a task agent. And that's an agent that can handle things while you concentrate on other things. So imagine I'm trying to multitask. I've got all these other things I'm trying to do. I want to offload some of that work. Now, maybe I've got an agent that can do that. So imagine a prime example, when I'm trying to do the vacuuming, eat my lunch, be on a call, kind of like a regular day at the office, right, or the home office. Imagine if you got that agent delegated, like a automated vacuum cleaner. I can actually sit down and concentrate on my other things I'm trying to do. A great example of that is the new facilitator agent that is coming soon to Microsoft 365 Copilot, where it's an agent that sits in a meeting and takes notes. So I don't have to sit and take notes and write things down and be in the meeting at the same time. Have anyone's ever tried that, right? Being a note taker in a meeting, you miss 50% of the stuff, right? So that offloads that task to the facilitator. So that's what a task agent would do. The next one is something that's, it's something we call an autonomous agent. So an autonomous agent can run in the background and do a bunch of things, and then basically run behind the scenes. But if it does notice something that's out of the ordinary, it can actually stop and to do something else, or it can even invoke other agents. I like to think almost like a robot in a car factory. It's building cars, it's building stuff. However, if there's a problem in the process, right? Maybe, for example, it's painting a blue hood on a white car, which probably shouldn't happen in a factory, right? That can hit quality control. The car's then taken off the production line, puts another exception process, and maybe it's sent to somewhere else to be fixed. So an autonomous agent is something that maybe if you look at in a Copilot world, I might build an agent that can prove expenses. Now I know that's quite for a lot of like managers, for example, proving expenses is like, if they've got time to do it, right? It's something that they have to sit down and concentrate with. If there was an agent that could do that for them, that'd be great. Now, and then they only get notified if there's maybe an exception to that. Maybe I've claimed too much for a hotel bill or a dinner. Then that can actually happen as well. So an autonomous agent, a good example being like as I mentioned before, an expense agent. So how do I build the agents? And they can be built several different ways. If you're a Microsoft 365 user and you have the license for Copilot, then you have something called Agent Builder, and we're going to show you a little demo of that. An agent builder is a very basic way of building agents. I can build some really powerful agents with it, but I'm kind of constrained by what the tool set is. So think of it as like a very simple construction set. I can build some really cool stuff. I can build agents with it, but I can't do too much outside of what it's allowing me to do. I can't go and do any major customization. If I do want to have some customization, and I'm not too worried about getting my hands dirty and writing a little bit of code, Copilot Studio is a great way of doing that. So think of that as more of an advanced construction set. I can go and build some really powerful agents. Again, I've got some constraints. I can't do the most granular agent in the world, but I can build some very, very powerful stuff. So I like to think of it as like a Lego set in that regard. And if you want to build something that's really complex, and you don't mind getting your hands dirty and writing some complex code, Azure AI has some great tools to do that. And you can build some very, very powerful and complex agents and pretty much do anything you want. And I like to think that was like a 3D printer. I can, if you can imagine building a model in the different steps, a 3D printer can be almost, real world, realistic, right? So if you look at the bottom, no code, low code, pro code is a way to think of the three ways of building agents. And then this slide is quite a nice slide. I'll pause here, but it gives you, a really good example of how to use which agent and when, or which agent builder and when. So for personal productivity and for everyday users, I don't have to be able to know any code. I can create an agent just from a prompt. So once you're familiar with writing prompts and writing some cool stuff with that, I can actually use Agent Builder to help me build an agent just from a prompt, or it's even wizard driven, so you don't even need to know prompts. If I want to build something a little bit more, specialized, that's where Copilot Studio comes in. I don't need to necessarily know code, but if I do know a little bit of coding, I can do that too. But I can pull in external resources. I can pull in other things. Studio is a great way of doing that. Think of that almost like a middle ground of building agents. And then lastly, if you want to build those really super complex agents, you want to roll them out potentially to the whole organization, do some really cool stuff, that's where Azure OpenAI comes in. So if you do have a Microsoft 365 license, Copilot license, we do include agents in that license that we've already built for you. So you don't have to actually go and get your hands dirty and create them, but you can if you want to. So there are 4 agents that come out of the box, and then fifth way, there is a way of creating your own. And I'll run through those really briefly before we start going into demo mode.
And just to throw out there, didn't we just announce 2 more?
We did.
Researcher and analyst, I believe.
Correct, researcher and analyst, which I haven't got that teed up for a video, but maybe we'll save that for a second or a subsequent session, because they are super cool from what I've seen, the things they can do. And I dare say there's a lot of code behind the scenes running those. I don't think they're the ones I could be creating with a prompt, but they're really, really cool. So the first agent I want to talk about that's out of the box is Facilitator. And I did talk about it briefly in a previous slide. But what Facilitator does is it's that agent that sits in a Teams meeting and makes the meeting notes for you. So I'd have to tie somebody up who's using OneNote or even a notebook to create notes and listening in the meeting, because unless you're very, very good at multitasking of listening and writing stuff at the same time and participating, it's very, very difficult, right? So Facilitator does those AI generated notes during the meeting. And not just that, I can actually go in there and change them or add stuff to it too. So it's actually creating a nice interactive meeting notes. And I think this is almost like a cousin to the intelligent meeting recap. Have you probably seen that in Teams Premium and Copilot? But this is during the meeting. This isn't after the meeting. So I can actually look at the notes as they're being, as the meeting's taking place. This is another cool one. I don't actually have a video of this, unfortunately. But Interpreter. So think of Interpreter as I'm in a meeting. Maybe it's a multi-time zone, multi-region, a global meeting. Not everybody's speaking the same language or understands the same language, or their first language is not the same one as the meeting. So wouldn't it be cool if you'd actually join a meeting and hear everybody speaking your first language? That's what Interpreter literally does. And not just that, if they've created a voice sample, the voices you'll hear in speaking your chosen language is in their own voice.
It'll sound like them.
Correct.
That is very cool.
So you could join a meeting with me and then you'd actually hear me speaking French, which apart from high school many, many years ago, I've not been done since. So yeah, so that's really, really cool. It's almost like the United Nations. There is a slight delay when you hear it because it has to process the speech. But I think even with a real human interpreter, you have the same issue, right? You never hear it exactly in real time.
Mm-hmm.
The next one out of the box is for those folks that like to use Planner, and that's Project Manager. So quite often you're creating a plan. One of the arduous tasks of actually having a project is actually creating the tasks themselves, right? So I can actually put a prompt into Planner, and it builds the tasks out for me, at least the initial outline. I can go in there and then edit them or stick with what it does. So imagine I was saying I want to roll out a project plan for rolling out Copilot. I can put that into Planner and it'll actually put the tasks in there. I can assign them to people, and then also track the tasks as well. So if it sees anything out of date or whatever, it'll actually start sending out chases and stuff. So it's really, really cool in that regard. So as a former project manager, this would have saved me a ton of work just creating a project plan.
Especially in those groups who aren't doing it's like you said, they're using Planner. They're not going into project and doing all kinds of in-depth. Although I'm sure at some point that'll all come here too.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah, it's just a matter of time, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this one I think should have been higher up on the list, because I think this is one that probably everybody would get value out of. And Mike's going to do a demo of this in the next couple of minutes. That's an agent in SharePoint, where you're grounding your agent only on the SharePoint site itself or in the document files and repository there. So something that's, again, really, really powerful. It's something I've used several times since we've rolled this out. And then lastly, we call these user-created agents. Being able to create an agent of my own, and it could be something I share, I have for myself, and I just use it for my own needs, or I can share it with my team, or share it with the company. And that can be built by using just a prompt. So I don't need to have any code or anything like that. And then I can do some really powerful stuff. But Copilot will go and build that agent for me. And then I can also go back and edit it. So I want to change some stuff up, maybe change some of the prompts or some of the startup prompts, I can go and do that too. And we're going to show you that as well. So the last thing I want to show you, though, is agents aren't just constrained to using the internet or using the tenant data. We actually have a bunch of connectors and partners working on these connectors. So you actually bring other external sources in. So prime example being there's Workday on here. There's a whole bunch. I'm not even sure where I could go through them all, right? There's Jira, there's Adobe. So chances are a lot of the tools you're using today can be brought into Copilot using a connector from one of our partners. All righty, I'm going to stop and take a breath and a slug of Diet Coke now, and then I'm going to pass over to Mike to talk about Copilot SharePoint agents.
Sure. So I'll
you.
cut over and I'm going to share my screen. And let me know when you can see that right there.
Yep, I can see it fine.
All right. So, one of the things, and it's amazing. I actually was just in a meeting today with this very subject where customer was like, we have this repository of authoritative data and information, and we need to build it. And they were talking about taking information out of SharePoint, putting it up into Azure, blah, 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 all this stuff, create a custom agent. And I was like, well, wait a minute. Time out. What do you want to do? And they said, we want people to be able to query it. I was like, okay. So take a step back. And I actually used this to show it to them. And they're like, wait a minute, what? Because, a lot of times as IT folks, we tend to go to the more, that real complex and everything looks like a dev project, right? And I said, if you have a repository, one or more authoritative, you can create some very easy to use ones. So here you can see I actually made their folders blue, but I have these repositories full of documentation. So think of approved documentation, right? And they can be large documents with all kinds of information. But the idea is you want to be able to give people access. And I showed them how to create a SharePoint agent where you come in, click create an agent. It's already created now. I showed them how you could go in and edit, change the name. You could add one or more sources, and it could be a library, other libraries, folders, or even individual files. I showed them how they could do that, and go and select. And then I also showed them how they could change the behavior, that initial starting question that's up here, the starter prompts, all that information to make it more customized. And then click save. And then once it was saved, let me get out of there. Once it was saved, how they could share the link, to take the link, copy the link to it, and then just do something simple. In this case, embed it in a web page, in another SharePoint page. And it's going to go ahead, and for some reason I'm getting prompted. Here we go. And it's going to open up that agent. Here's those suggested prompts. And people can come in and say, hey, I want to create a COVID FAQ. So this agent here looks at those two different folders full of information. One's COVID, one's RSV. But if I use the suggested prompt here, or if I free type, it's going to pull back information simply. Like here, it's going to do one just around the COVID. It's going to restrict itself to just that folder. It's intelligent enough to know how to do that. And then it's creating this nice FAQ for me that I can copy. I could go ahead and continue to query on it, get more info. It also has links back to the sources where it's getting those pieces of information. We're saying easy peasy. All this took was me having access to one or more of those SharePoint repositories and saying, okay, what do I want it to be? And so quick creation, no need to program, no need to migrate data someplace else and create a custom UI and all that. It's done. It's all done for me, right? So that's an agent in SharePoint one, but I think you're going to show us how we can actually create one right within Copilot Chat itself to look at some information. So I'll let you take back over. I'll stop.
Okay, thank you. So hopefully you can see my Copilot Chat. And you can see I've got both the licenses. I've got the web version and the work version. But also if you notice here, I've the little switch, I can pop out my agents. So this is my agent tray. I guess I've I've christened it agent tray now.
It's your secret agent tray.
A secret agent tray. I'm here. I've got my agents that are here that have been shared. I've created them myself. I've shared. But I also got an option to pin them as well, right? So ones I frequently use, just on my phone, right? I can put them on my home screen. If I use a prompt or an agent quite a lot, I can pin it to my home screen like so. So they're always going to be there. But like, so if I, for example, if I click on my GLP-1 Copilot agent, straight away I've got an agent that's grounded on anything that's related to GLP-1 medications, whether that's you know, Ozempic, Mounjaro. I don't want to use too many brand names, but GLP-1's a big thing right now, right? People are using that for diabetes treatment as well as weight loss. But imagine I wanted to create a brand new agent. So here you can see I've got Get Agents, which takes me to the App Store, and I can see other agents that have been shared with me by Microsoft. I'm in Microsoft tenant right now. So if I click that, it will take me to my apps. I'll quickly show you that first. You can see it's loaded my app tray, which is looking rather blank. Waiting for it a little bit to load. I think I've got some bandwidth issues. It's spring break and I've got the kids home, so they're probably all watching YouTube. So I'll blame that. It's taking its time. But I'll go back to the Copilot and we'll look at that again in a moment. Hopefully it's loaded by then. I have an option here to create an agent. And this loads something called Agent Builder. Now, Agent Builder is a kind of a cousin of Copilot Studio. And what I can do here is it's given me a wizard. So I just got to type a prompt in. What do I want to do? So I want to create, oops, my mouse out the way, an agent that gives me information about one of the big topics that I think is bird flu, right? So I'm going to mention avian flu, which I think is H5N1. I don't know, H5.
No.
Help. Okay, that should be good for that. And it's going to ask me some questions about how my agent should operate. And also, if you look on the right-hand side, it's already started to process what my agent would look like. So what am I going to call my agent? I'm going to call it, it's giving me avian flu infobot. I'm not sure I want to use that one, but okay. How about bird flu agent? So if you wait, you can see here straight away, it's processed that and it's renamed it. It's also saying, giving an explanation what these are. And these are the starter prompts, by the way. So while it's processing, I can actually test this guy out, right? So maybe I click on the transmission one.
So it's like it's already reasoned across some of this, and then it's giving you suggested prompts based upon that information. It's pretty awesome.
That's exactly it. It is pretty awesome, right? And if I hit the new chat again, it will just reset it so I can see what it's doing while I do it. So now it's asking, well, refine the instructions. What specific information? It should supply information about spread prevention and symptoms. Okay. Put that into the prompt. It's thinking about it. Would you like to add any publicly accessible data sources? Yes. I would like to add the CDC website. And I just happen to have the CDC website open in my browser, so I'm quickly going to pull that up. You probably don't see that because I'm not sharing my browser, but I'm going to add that here and I'm going to put that into the prompt as well. Okay, that's telling me it's done. So here's my test agent. And if now I can hit the create button and then go off to the races and it's created it. But also when else you want to go and configure it, here I can do some other things. I can change the icon, for example. So maybe I want to change the background or put a new icon. I haven't got an icon loaded, unfortunately, but say I wanted to just change the background and make it pink. And I'm going to close that and set it so it stands out up there. I can also change my
catch people's attention.
Exactly right. I can also change the description. So wherever the words you see here, I can change that. Here are my instructions, and it's actually, you can see it's actually more verbose than what I actually told it to do, right? It's already assumed some of the instructions. Now, here you can see straight away, I can add knowledge sources. So maybe, for example, I've got an internal SharePoint site. I can add that as a knowledge source. I can have up to 20 different knowledge sources. And it's already taken the one I already used, the CDC one, and added it here straight away. So I can have up to 20 knowledge sources. And then what I've got is a web search. Now, web search means if it doesn't find it in CDC, it will go across the whole of the internet and find something else. Maybe I want to restrict that and you want to look at CDC data. I'm going to just click that guy off, right? And it's giving me a warning. If you turn that off, it'll only use the CDC website. I also have some connectors here. These are the ones I've been shared with me, but none of these don't really seem that appropriate. But if I did have an external connector to another data set, I could use that too. I also have some options here. If I want to add, if this is a coding website, I can add code interpreter. Or if I want to add image generator. But here's my option to change my starter prompts. So maybe I want to delete some. Maybe I want to add a new starter prompt. So I only allowed 6, unfortunately. But here, if I wanted to say, I call it, what are the symptoms? Straight away, it's changed it on my preview. See, straight away. Pretty cool. Got an error saving the agent. Wonder what that's about. So here you can see straight away I've got that agent. And when I'm done, I hit the create agent button, which it seems to have failed, unfortunately. I'm in a beta version, let's put it that way. But if I actually did create it, it would be here in my list on the right hand side, and I'll be able to click on it. Alrighty, now that's Agent Builder. Now Mike's going to show you how to use Copilot Studio. So I'm going to pass back to Mike.
So I'm out here in a demo area, and you can see I'm in Copilot chat, but what I've done is here I created something called the CDC Assistant. So I wanted to create a web-focused instance, be able to get the latest information and give it, have it get information. But I want to show you where we do all that. So this is Microsoft Copilot Studio. When you come in, it's going to look like this. And it says, you can describe your agent to create it. Notice some of the things, we were talking about, like templates. Here's some example templates that are available: Safe Travels, Team Navigator, Financial Insights. But you can also see ones that I have created, including this CDC Information Assistant. And so I also have a clinician's tip sheet, some others. And so I'm going to go ahead and just click this to show you, and then I'll show you how I could quickly create it. Wait for that to open. Studio is a little longer because it's a little more involved. And here's where we start to do the Jeopardy theme. Do, 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 do. Come on, baby, you can do it.
It's one of those bandwidth days, I think.
Oh boy. Yeah, so I'm going to do this. I'm just going to go ahead. We'll go right into create. All right, so we're going to create an agent. And again, you get all these different ones that are available. I hadn't noticed this before, an agent with voice capability. That is a future session right there.
Absolutely.
But I'm going to go ahead and say new agent. And I'll show, this is similar to what Darryl was doing. Actually, I think, what's that other site called? NIH?
So,
National Institute of Health. Yeah, there we go. So I'll do an NIH agent. So if I wanted to create an agent that would give me the latest data and information coming out of NIH, especially around the health information and all the topics that then go, from there and on, I could come over here, and I'm just going to take their base, and I'm going to say, create Now, this all looks very similar. This is what's cool. I'll show you the additional capabilities we get in here, but notice it's doing just like when Darryl did his, right? That set of skills translates going from one to the other. And so I'm going to say create an agent for the NIH website that allows me to get the latest health information from that location. So I want an authoritative source like NIH. I'm just going to go ahead, give it the URL here as well. I'm going to go ahead and submit that. And so it's going to go and take a look at things, and then it's going to start to build in the back. Okay, great. How about calling it the NIH info bot? I'll just say yes. There we go. And so it's walking me through. It's a wizard, right? Now let's refine the instructions. First, let's define what the agent should do. Provide users with latest information. I like that. We'll just take that and say Control C, boom. And let it finish loading. Next, let's determine any public accessible data that you'd like to add. This step is optional. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to skip now to configuration, because this is where it gets interesting. So notice it started to build things here. It's telling me what's going on. I'm going to say skip to configuration. Like Darryl, I can change the look and feel. Here's that title. Here's the description. I like this. It looked at the information, and based off of that information, it's given a set of instructions, right? And so this is where it's kind of giving the tone and other things. It says maintain a friendly, informative tone, guide users to specific sections. These are the things, instead of me having to think about, because I provided it an authoritative data source, looked at it, and it's giving suggested instructions that'll happen behind the scenes. It also has here suggested starter prompts. Beautiful. And again, I could go with any of these. I could edit and change those. I could add knowledge sources. So I can say, public websites. Whoops. Like, I'll just re-add it one more time just so we have that showing there. Boom. And we've got that. We're going to say create, and then it's going to give me an expanded set of options to start to build on this before I even publish. So it's setting up the baseline agent, and now it's going to render it out, hopefully a little quicker than last time. There we go. And so here it has that example agent, right, where I can start to look at and test, and has an introduction to it. But we have some additional things, right? So there's that knowledge source. We have that enabled. So number one, I can add actions if I want. When I click that, it's going to give me some featured actions, like if there's Excel data, getting weather forecasts, running flows. There's a whole library here. There's a new action that I can create prompts, a new Power Automate flow, right? Where I can have an automated action taking place. Custom connectors to specific external data sources. I can upload skills. I can provide a REST API to pull data. I mean, very rich interface for things I want to do. I can also come in and say I want to add triggers, right? And so it says turn on generative orchestration to continue. I could turn that on, and then I could get to a whole library of information, but things that'll trigger specific actions on the back end. We're not going to do that. I could put that there. It says add conversation topics to focus and guide your users. So if I click add a topic, name a topic, create a topic to do the following. And it says like let someone order a pizza, choosing from common pizza types. I could say let them query around a specific disease by prompting specific information, etc. But it's all these rich areas. Now it's brought me over here into that specific area. And then finally, I'm going to skip over here to channels. Where do I want to publish this to? Now, with yours, it was limited when we did it like an agent builder. It was right in Copilot chat. I've got here, I can publish this into telephony, solutions, Microsoft Teams 365. And of course, these are premium connectors, right? But demo websites, custom website, a mobile app, Facebook, Skype, Slack, Telegram, Twilio, Line, GroupMe, Direct Speech, email, Genesis, Live Person, Salesforce, ServiceNow, and Custom Engagement Hub. So we can do just about to anywhere if we have the proper APIs. But it allows me to now publish my solution once created into a whole plethora of different areas. Like this custom website one is pretty cool, where it actually will give you the code. So I'm going to say, I'll just say start free trial. Yeah. Starting the free trial. And what it'll do here is provide me the code or the link to drop right into my custom site. 2222. And there we go. So now it's going to give me, when I go ahead and do that, isn't available until I finish setting it up. It's going to give me the embed code to drop into my site. And then I can have that agent wherever I'd like. So public website, whatever the case is. But the whatever you can imagine here in the studio, and if you got to go beyond all this, there is full code.
Yeah.
So that's all I got.
This is good. This is good. So Studio is so powerful, just out of the box, right?
Yes, right out of the box. So much you can do.
Yep.
All right. You got any last things?
No, I think we're good. I think this has been good. I hope it's been a good overview for everybody to see how we think of agents and what they are, and then it's a good opportunity for folks to go and try them, right? If they've got them enabled in their tenant.
And the beautiful thing, I know IT folks are starting to have eye twitches, but how do I manage and control this? That's our next session. We're going to get into that. We'll get into the basic chat administration and agent administration, and then we'll go into specific ones after that. But well, hopefully this was helpful.
Yeah, I hope so too.
All right, with that, it's
Darryl
and Mike.
Yep.
Close this up, Darryl.
Yeah, thank you, and see you at the next podcast.
All righty. Have a great day, everybody.
Have a great day. Take care.